Everybody do this. We're going to focus. Everybody focusing. Got it. Everybody, let's see it. We're focusing like this. Okay. On what is pro bono and why legal service providers do it, why they do it, and should they do it. And we that's important. I think that this is probably one of the most important sessions of these next 3 days, because so much of what we do will build on this. It's a real honor to be doing this session with my three co-facilitators. You've met me. My name's Bruce Lasky, and I'm going to ask my three co-facilitators to now introduce themselves.
I'll start. My name is Marlon. You've met me earlier from the Philippines, from Namati.
I can go next. I'm Gabby Christian Hare from the Australian Pro Bono Centre. Great to see you all.
I'm a lawyer from Malaysia, and actually Bruce is one of my teachers when I was in law school. So we have known each other for 14 years, and it is a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and Sam, it's just absolutely, I think it's even more of an honor for me to, as we said before, like with Pavina and so many others, to see those seeds really grow into the people that you are, planting more seeds and spreading more values as we do. So doing this alongside you and knowing about the amazing work you do is just an incredible honor. So with that, everybody, I think we're ready to go. I'm going to pass this over to Marlon, and I think we're going to put up quickly just put up the PowerPoint. If we can just put that up as to the question of, I think, what is pro bono?
That's right. That's right. And we are ready. We have 150 participants in the room. Do you see that? Do you see the list? You can just scroll through the list of participants if you're looking for somebody. Okay. As Bruce mentioned, it's important for us to start.
Let me just start. If the secretary can put up, if they can,
the PowerPoint, yeah,
put up the PowerPoint.
Slides. Okay. As Bruce mentioned, it's very important for us to. I can see it now. I can see it. Do you see the slides? The slide? Okay. Let's start. As Bruce mentioned, I think Bruce got disconnected, but we can continue. As Bruce mentioned, it's important for us to have a common understanding of pro bono, and that is where we're going. So we're starting with a simple question, and we would like you to use the chat and type in your answers to this question. What is pro bono? What is your understanding of pro bono? So please use the chat and type in your answers. We'll spend a couple of minutes for that, to receive answers to that question. Okay, I can see some answers being put in the chat. Okay, thank you for the translation. Okay, please continue typing your answers. Okay, and you can continue typing your answers, but now I will call on a few participants just to explain briefly their understanding of the concept of pro bono. I'll start with Shom Prasad from Nepal. Shom, if you can unmute your mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Shom. Loud and clear. Yeah.
For me, pro bono is the free service, any kind of service, not limited to the legal service. Yeah, we most of the participants here are from legal background, is including legal service also, but any service without paying or without expectation of paying is voluntary service. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wish to explain what has been written? You can unmute your mic. Otherwise, I will call on some who are here. I'll call on Tip. Tip, where are you? Tip Sivong from Lao.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Tip.
To me, pro bono is mean the legal duty for the lawyer who provide the service for the vulnerable people. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tip. I'm still reading some of the answers coming in. And thank you for the secretariat for helping us translate some of the answers that are written in different languages. Anybody else who would like to share his or her understanding of the term pro bono? Yadana.
Yes, my answer would be quite similar to the others, but pro bono is providing the legal service free of charge, especially for the poor and marginalized people. However, I myself is not a pro bono, so we still need to learn a lot from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Yadana. And I see a number of other love. Yasu said love. Bert?
Yes, sir, Marlon.
Go ahead, Bert. Yes.
Thank you. For me, I understood that pro bono literally means for the good. So it's working and providing assistance, not for compensation, but towards contributing for the good of the public, or the people, or the nation, or for humanity, but doing something for the good.
Thank you. Thank you, Bert. Vish, I saw your hand raised earlier.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think a lot I wanted to say has been covered, but I think one of the things that I just wanted to add, and it'll be quite interesting to see what the panel also has to say on this, is that it's not just unpaid work, because there has to be an element of either responsibility, duty. I think some people, which I mean, I personally disagree with, but some might say of charity as well. So there has to be that element of good for the general public and providing your services, because it can't just be things that are not paid for, because there might be other elements to it as well. So yeah, that's one of the areas, the dovetailing between providing it for free and not doing charity and doing it as a responsibility or as a duty. I think that's something I'd like to hear from the panel. So it's more of a sort of opening the gates rather than just my understanding of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vish. And that's a very good synthesis of the different concepts that we will be discussing in not only in this session, but in other sessions as well. But just to have a quick recap before I turn I was about to say the floor, but we are in different areas. Before I turn over the mic to Samantha, the term pro bono. comes from the term, the Latin term pro bono publico, for the good of the public, or shortened for the good, pro bono. Many of you said free legal services, but as Vish mentioned, we could look at it also from the point of view of responsibility of not only lawyers, but other legal service providers as well. So lawyers, law students, and so we are using in this conference, we're using the term legal service providers. You may not be a lawyer, you could be a paralegal, an ordinary citizen with enough training on the law and the legal system, and you could be a legal service provider, and therefore you could also do pro bono legal services. Later on, we will also look at the broad range of legal services that can be done as part of pro bono. Many of you mentioned it's voluntary. That's also an issue that we will be discussing, whether there needs to be some policy mandating pro bono. So that's a very good initial conversation on the concept of pro bono. I will now turn. Oh, somebody mentioned the term legal aid, and that is where we are now moving our discussion to. And I'll call on Samantha. Samantha, over to you for our next conversation.
And maybe we can have the Secretariat move the slide.
Sam, I think you're on mute. There.
So what is pro bono and you're the same thing? So this is always the question. So can you just raise your hand, one hand if you think it's the same thing, or it is not the same thing, can you raise two? Or you can put 1 minute love or 2 minute love, okay? If it's the same thing, raise one hand. If it's not the same thing, raise two hands.
Or if it's not the same thing, you could wave your hand. You could wave one hand. So if it's the same thing, one hand up. Not the same thing, wave two hands, or
Okay.
two hands up, or wave one hand.
I can see some hand raising here. Yes. Okay, so it is not the same thing actually, but it always overlap and it can support each other. So if you look further into pro bono, like what Marlon has covered is pro bono publico, is for the public good. So they often overlap in the sense that they're initially based on charity and professionalism. Also understanding that as people should have rights to access legal aid and justice. So legal aids normally come from certain funding. Pro bono, you do it for free. And legal aid is mostly based on the recognitions that people need to have access to justice. So they are not the same thing, but they are often overlapped. So tomorrow, we will have a plenary session to talk about this into detail. So the session tomorrow will be at 3:30 to 5:30 to talk about entire sessions on pro bono and legal aid. And they're not the same thing, but how they can work to support each other. Yes, I see some brilliant answer here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Samantha.
So next I'll pass it to Gabby. Hello, Gabby.
Hi. Hi there. I think we've lost the PowerPoint actually.
Can we move the PowerPoint forward? Next slide. Okay. And the next slide. There it is. Our favorite slide. Back. Go back. There it is. Gabby, over to you.
Okay, so I think what we're talking about now is that there are such a wide range of activities that can be undertaken through pro bono legal work. It essentially involves either direct legal advice or representation to individuals, disadvantaged and marginalized individuals. It can be work for a wide range of community organizations like community legal centers, not-for-profits, charities, and in some circumstances, social enterprises as well. It can involve law reform and policy activities, community legal education activities, and the list goes on. And the banquet really is a depiction of the fact that there are such a wide variety of different flavors of pro bono legal activities that can be pursued and which you can become involved in.
And everybody, if you like food, put up 2 hands or wave 1 hand. If you like food, put up 2 hands or wave 1 hand. Let's see if you like food. Yeah. And that's it. So, and you can go to these amazing buffets. And as Gabby's saying, that pro bono is like an amazing buffet. And the type of ways to do pro bono is like the amazing buffet. Different foods. Maybe you're allergic to one type of food, so you don't eat that, but you eat this. Maybe you don't like too much salt, so you eat this. But that's the idea, that you can pick and choose. But there's so many different ways to do pro bono. And if people say, oh, I don't have time, I don't know, it just means they're not looking for the right food. Gabby, back over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. There are just such a wide variety of activities to become involved in. And as you say, Bruce, you've just got to jump in and devour the smorgasbord, effectively. Get involved as much as you possibly can. Shall we move to the next slide?
So yesterday, or not yesterday, sorry, it feels like yesterday. This morning, earlier this morning, we talked about the declaration that we all came to in Nepal, this values declaration. And part of that declaration talked about the types of pro bono women. So, and there's Marlene again. So let's just go to the next slide. Okay, so we had this declaration, okay, and it exists. Next slide. And next slide. Okay. Keep going. Okay. So when we talk about the different examples of pro bono, I think Gabby and Sam are going to kind of lead you in an exercise as to the idea that there are, as part of this declaration, we didn't limit pro bono. Growing up, I was told, oh, pro bono is, you have to work with clients. You have to be a lawyer and you have to work with clients. That's it. That's pro bono. Other things, it's nice, but we're not going to count it as pro bono. It's good stuff, but we're not going to count it. And, and we've really, everybody do this. Everybody from here, everybody do this. Everybody from here, everybody do this. Okay. We brought in our vision and we brought in our ideas. And with that, I think, I think with Gabby and Sam, maybe we should just get some examples from people of what they think. Let's get some examples from you. So Gabby and Sam, over to you. Let's see if we can get some examples from people, what they think some examples of pro bono services are.
Great. It'd be fantastic if everybody can just pop what they think are some good activity examples into the chat. Thanks.
And for this, we're talking about legal pro bono. We're actually talking about pro bono that focuses on law or justice. We understand you could have other things, but this is related to law, justice related pro bono. Okay. So law or justice related pro bono. Let's put it into the chat, some examples of types of ways, that buffet of food, maybe it's steak, or maybe it's potatoes, or maybe it's noodles, or fish. You know, what are some examples? Let's put it into the chat, some examples of different ways to do pro bono.
Subset pro bono legal advice, legal educations, provide a legal workshop training to law students, criminal defense for unaffordable accused, legal advice, legal drafting, legal document support, educating people about their rights, knowledge sharing, refugee legal aid and public of advocacy, pro bono policies related support, mentoring, representing the case without any pay for the public good. Love, I love this, love. It's brilliant.
Terrific.
Yeah. Okay, we got the chat coming in. Referral, connecting among the clients and lawyer, yes.
That's right. All very important activities to be able to provide legal services.
We have a huge buffet here.
That's right. And with many of these examples, I think it's important to note that it's not work undertaken without reference to whether someone can pay for the advice or whether it raises an issue of public interest. So both of those aspects are really important when considering the work that is to be provided.
And I think that's important what Gabby says, because so for instance, like I'm a lawyer for 31 years. You know, I have family members, they have money and they ask me to do free legal work for them. And I do it. I'm happy to do it. But I don't count that as pro bono because they actually can afford to pay. So really, it's great work and I do it all the time, but that's not what I consider. Pro bono really focuses on broad public good and also often working with marginalized or poor people. I love my family. Some of them can't afford it and I do free legal work and that's pro bono. So remember, there are things that are and aren't, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It's still good work, but it may not be actual pro bono. And so I think if we go back to the declaration, can we go to the next slide? Okay. If we look at this as part of it, we talk that it really needs to be very wide, the idea. And if you talk to people and they tell you, oh, like I said before, oh, I don't have time to do pro bono, I can't meet clients. Most people that are legal service providers don't do pro bono because they don't know where the buffet is. They don't know where the buffet is. And all you have to do is take their hand and bring them to the buffet. Take their hand and bring them to the buffet. And when they see all that beautiful food, they're going to find something that they're going to want to eat on that buffet. And that's a lot of what we do here when we're talking about growing seeds and growing this movement. So if you ever hear a lawyer or another legal service provider tell you, I don't have time to do pro bono, I can't afford to do pro bono, take their hand and bring them to the buffet and help them find something to eat, you know. And with that, I think, Gabby, I think we want to kind of turn to you. I think you want to give us one example of, I think, an area of pro bono that you've been working on, along with PeelNet. Can we get to the next slide? A really great example, one of the many buffet foods. And if we can go to the next slide, and I think Gabby's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Bruce. So the Centre, the Australian Pro Bono Centre, along with PeelNet and many lawyers across the world, have been involved in the development of a global pro bono climate action portal, which is housed on PeelNet's website. The portal follows the production by the Australian Pro Bono Centre in 2020 of an inaugural pro bono guide to the climate crisis, which essentially described 15 different activities that legal service providers around the world can become involved in to help fight our climate emergency. And the portal really is a way for us, in partnership with PeelNet, to continue to collect lots of really interesting case studies on climate work to both inform legal service providers across the world as to what's happening, but also, of course, to provide really good inspiration as well. So if you are interested, and I think almost all of us are interested in this very critical topic area, have a look at the portal, read the case studies, and absolutely, if you have a case study that is not currently in the portal that you can share with us, please either go onto the PeelNet website or our website to find a link to submit your case study. We would absolutely love to hear from you. This is an incredibly important topic area, which will, of course, become more and more important as the years go on. Thank you very much, Bruce.
So check that, the Climate Action Portal. And I'm sure many of those who are here are doing work in the field of environmental justice, climate action. So this would be a very helpful resource. So check this out. We are now going to move to the next part of our conversation. Can we please move the slide to the next one? Okay, who does pro bono? Again, we have covered this question earlier, but we just want to do this bit by bit so that we have a general collective understanding of who does pro bono. Next slide, please. We are going back again to the declaration that we formulated in the declaration. Next, please. Oh. After the portal, after the question, then
go the other way, the other way. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Who does? Keep going.
One more. Okay, there. Okay. So section 3, as oops. We should go to the slide with there. Okay. So if you can somebody please read this portion of the declaration? I can. Okay. So if you can see from the declaration, it says there should be broad-based support and responsibility for providing pro bono services coming from a variety of sectors, including the government, judicial, legal, private, academic, civil society, to benefit poor, underprivileged, or marginalized persons or communities or the organizations that assist them. In the previous question, the question asked was, what kind of services do we mean when we say pro bono? And we showed the buffet. Now we are looking at those who are hungry and going to the buffet table. There's so many people who can eat, who are invited, they have the opportunity to go there and to select whatever food they want and to choose and to eat based on their preferences. Okay, I have a question for all of us, and this is a very important principle that we want to clarify. After reading this, and can non-lawyers do pro bono? Those who are not professional lawyers, those who are not licensed to practice law, can they engage in pro bono work? You can put yes or no in the. You can also say, of course. I see Anita answering, of course. Absolutely. Okay, somebody said absolutely. Of course, absolutely. Of course, for sure. Okay, so that's one clarification that we want to make. There are different persons who can provide pro bono legal services. It is not a question of whether you are a lawyer or not. I'm not sure if there is a. Do we have a question from Zar? I see your hand up. Su Zar? Or are you just saying yes? Okay, I think Sar is just saying yes. So that's one clarification that we want to make. So when we talk about pro bono legal services, we are not talking about lawyers only. Lawyers are included, but we're talking about legal service providers. So and just maybe one final question, and you can put your answer in the chat. Who are these non-lawyers who can provide pro bono legal services? If you can put in the chat box who can provide, aside from saying you, of course, yourself. Who are the paralegals? Okay, that's good. Yeah, there are students, very good. Educators, very good. Okay, social workers, thank you, Meda. Thank you. Community justice actors, very good. Okay, so there's a whole range of persons. Even health workers could be pro bono legal service providers. Human rights defenders, justice seekers, practitioners. Thank you very much. We will continue our conversation. Over to you, Gabby.
It may be me, but I'm not sure if it's Gabby. I think it may be me.
You, Bruce. Sorry.
That's okay. That's
you,
okay. And Gabby's coming up. Yep. Okay, good. So, okay. So so we talked about, that's the who. We started with the what. What is pro bono? So everybody put up one finger. The what. Okay. The what. Okay. One finger. What? Let me hear it. What? Let me hear it, everybody. What? Let me hear it, everybody. What? What? Okay. What is pro bono? Okay. What? Second finger. Two fingers up. Let's hear it. Who? Okay. Okay. Let's put up our third finger. Okay. This is the why. Why? Let's hear it. Why? Okay. The why. Okay. Why? Great. So, and we're often asked this. Okay, everybody put yourself on mute now, just for a sec. Everybody on mute. Okay. So we asked why. So let's get to the next slide. The next slide, everyone. Power. Okay. The why. Okay. Keep going. Next slide. Okay. Keep coming. Next slide. Okay. Why? Why do we do pro bono? Why? All right. And so I mean, there are many reasons, and we're going to hear from you. We're going to hear from some of you. We're going to hear from some of you. But I want to go back to, let's go back to the declaration. So we came together and we're like, well, why? Many reasons. Let's get the next slide. Next slide. Why? Okay. That's it. Okay. So there it is. There it is. So Nui, can you hear me? Nui, can you put your hands up? Nui, can you hear me? Great. Nui, who's one of our wonderful members of our Babsicle team, what does this slide say? This is a why. Why? Can you tell us what this slide says? Over to Nui, who's one of our wonderful legal fellows. Nui, what does this slide say?
Read the sentence.
Yes, read the sentence. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The standings and expanding of pro services and systems are essential in achieving access to the justice for all and to achieve the sustainable development goals.
All right. Yeah. I mean, pro bono is a part of it. We're going to talk tomorrow about legal aid, and we often talk about legal aid being, the main meal, and pro bono being a vitamin, an important vitamin, and it helps to strengthen access to justice and really to achieve these goals. So, and it really does. It's part of it. It's not the only thing. It's not the only thing, but it's part of it. So now, everybody put your hands up in the air. Everybody, one hand or two hands. Everybody put your hands up in the air. Okay. Everybody put your hands up in the air. Everybody hands up in the air. All right. So if you have ever done pro bono, hands up in the air, hands up in the air. If you've ever done pro bono, keep your hands up. If you've ever done pro bono, keep your hands up. Okay. Okay. Great. So if you've ever done okay, wonderful. So let's see. I'm going to see Radhika. Radhika, can you tell us what kind of pro bono? Give us an example of pro bono that you've done and why you've done it. Give us the what and the why. The what and the why.
Hi, Bruce. Can you hear me?
Can.
Lots of echo.
Can we hear you?
Is it better now?
Roddy, if you're sitting next to people, they have to mute themselves. They've got to mute. Yeah. As you're figuring that out, as you're figuring that out, have the people next to you. Liz from Philippines. Liz, do we agree that Lizelle, Liz? Can you hear us? Did I lose people?
Yeah, we can hear you, Lizelle.
Liz, Lizelle, can you tell us, have you ever done pro bono, and why, if you have, why you've done it? I'm not actually hearing her.
Hi, Bruce. If you don't mind, I can answer this question.
Okay, go ahead. Yep, great.
The reason why I do pro bono is because I really care about the people in my city and in the region. So I really hope some of the knowledge that I have can be used in benefiting them. So that's as simple as that. So regarding the work that I do on pro bono, so I has been a litigation lawyer, so I sometimes represent clients in the gender-based sexual harassment claims, and also representing refugees in making their application. And another things that I'm doing quite exciting is I help the firm manage our pro bono practice in Asia as well. It's so much fun.
Beautiful, and thank you,
Back to
Aaron.
you, Bruce.
Wonderful.
No
And I
problem.
think I see Lenny from Indonesia. Do we see Lenny from Indonesia? There she is. Lenny, can you introduce yourself and tell us, have you ever done pro bono, and why you do? If you have, why you've done it? What kind of pro bono? What you've done, and why you?
Hello all. I'm sorry for the late to join with you guys because I just finished teaching for new semester. My name is Leni Winnie Moyani, aka Coffee Lover and Pro Bono enthusiast. So since 2007, I did some Pro Bono activities through street law. So basically, we give free legal education and free legal literacy for the poor and marginalized. And I involve so many students. I have 10 batch until now. And then in 2015, those pro bono activities, through street law activity has become the mandatory subject for my school for 2 credits. So now the third year student must do pro bono activities through community legal empowerment, community legal education, and also legal literacy for the poor and marginalized. I think that will be all, Bruce. Thank you for introducing me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Lenny. Okay. Apa kabar? Okay.
Baik, baik.
Okay. Okay. And I think we had, was it Konasi? Konasi had a hand up. Did I miss that before? Konasi from Laos? I'm not sure if we had, okay. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is everybody like this, everybody like this. If you have done pro bono, in the chat, what kind of pro bono you've done and why. What you've done and why. Everybody, if you've done pro bono, in the chat, what you've done and why. The what kind of food on the buffet, and we want to know why you've done it. What kind of food? Is it sushi? Okay. Okay, is it noodles? Okay, is it rice? Is it bread? What kind of food and why? Okay, and Sam and Gabby, maybe you can have just a quick discussion with some of the people that have put in there and just maybe run through the list just briefly.
Yeah, sure. Sam, would you like to kick us off? Okay, I think Sam might be having trouble with her mic. So just while she's looking at that, I'll jump in. So just to pick up on a couple of these responses, thanks to Shashi, who has noted that there's been provision of free legal services to women and girls, and also involvement in legal awareness, which of course could also be legal education and student pro bono services as well. So wide variety of activities there. Then Shom has also noted legal support, advocacy, and legal empowerment, and noted a motivation there as well that Shom has noted that it's because it's my responsibility towards society. Thank you for noting that motivation as well. There's quite a few in the chat who have said they've never been involved in pro bono legal work. So there's lots to look forward to. Just one more from Anita, noting legal empowerment activities, policy and advocacy, legal advice, referral, and court representation. So a very wide variety of activities noted there as well.
Gabby, I see a hand raised.
I think Leno has a hand up. Leno, do you have your hand up?
เจ้าสบายดีประธานข้าพเจ้าอยากเว้าเป็นภาษาลาวเนาะเกี่ยวกับเรื่องของประสบการณ์ในการเฮ็ดโปรโบโนแม่น ข้าพเจ้าเองเนาะได้เริ่มเป็นอาสาสมัครมาตั้งแต่ตอนเป็นนักศึกษาอยู่มหาลัยในปี 2007 เนาะและก็หลังจากที่สำเร็จการศึกษาก็ได้สืบต่อเฮ็ดเวียกเกี่ยวกับโปรโบโนมาตลอดโดยเฉพาะแม่นการที่จะเฮ็ดเวียกร่วมกับศูนย์บริการกฎหมายเพื่อประชาชนอยู่ใน CLE โดยเฉพาะแม่นได้นำพานักศึกษาลงไปจัดตั้งปฏิบัติการเผยแพร่กฎหมายให้กับชุมชนอยู่ในเขตชนบทโดยเฉพาะแม่นเรื่องของกฎหมายที่ดินเนาะแล้วก็กฎหมายป่าไม้จนมาฮอดในปัจจุบันเนาะหลังจากที่ข้าพเจ้าได้รับบัตรทนายความในปี 2013 ข้าพเจ้าก็เลยเฮ็ดเวียกเป็นทนายความให้การช่วยเหลือล่าโดยที่ว่าได้เป็นผู้ร่วมงานกับบริษัทLDP เนาะที่ให้การคำปรึกษาหรือว่าช่วยเหลือแม่หญิงเนาะโดยข้าพเจ้าเองก็ได้มีโอกาสได้ไปประจำอยู่ศูนย์ให้คำปรึกษากฎหมายแก่แม่หญิงอยู่ที่บ้านหนองสองห้องอยู่เมืองไซธานีเนาะและในปัจจุบันเองเนาะพวกเฮาในข้าพเจ้าก็เฮ็ดเวียกกับร่วมกับโครงการไลฟ์เนาะอยู่ภายใต้องค์การบ้านจุดสูบสากลซึ่งว่าพวกเฮาก็ยังได้สืบต่อเฮ็ดเวียกเกี่ยวกับเรื่องของโปรโบโนเนาะโดยเฉพาะแม่นการเสริมสร้างความเข้มแข็งให้กับวัยหนุ่มเนาะนักศึกษาที่เป็นคนชนเผ่าที่ศึกษาอยู่ในคณะนิติศาสตร์และรัฐศาสตร์ซึ่งว่าพวกเฮาหันจะมีเซกชันหนึ่งเนาะที่จะมาแลกเปลี่ยนในมื้ออื่นเนาะในช่วงระยะเวลา 11 โมงถึง 12 โมงครึ่งเนาะสำหรับเรื่องรายละเอียดอย่างต่างๆก็ถ้าหากท่านใดสนใจก็สามารถเข้าร่วมกิจกรรมในเซกชันของพวกเขาได้ในมื้ออื่นเจ้าขอบใจ
And are we able to get a summary of the translation from Leno?
We had. Yeah, we had interpretation. Yes.
Great. So yeah, and as a note, Leno also like Tip and Pa and others, we saw that he's actually started as a student back when, had great models, and then has really gone on to do amazing work. So fantastic. So with that, what we want to get to the next question of, so we have, what is pro bono? We have the who, we have the why. And then we get into a next question. If we can get to the next slide, because this is really a question, that is brought up a lot. It's brought up a lot. And I think even Lenny said it before, students at her university, they're required to do pro bono work as students in Indonesia. They're required. Part of their education, they're required to do this. So the question is often raised, if you're a legal service provider, should you do or must you do pro bono? So here's the question. If you're a legal service provider, we're saying is you must provide pro bono services. This is a question or a statement, okay? And I think, Gabby, we're going to kind of pass it over to you, I think, to see about where people are on this, all right?
Sure. Well, before we draw from the panelists to a variety of views on this, can we have everybody add to the chat, please, as to whether you think pro bono legal services should be mandatory or not?
So if you're a legal service provider, should you be required to do pro bono? And we're not just talking about lawyers, not just lawyers, but definitely includes lawyers, but legal service providers. Do you think they shouldn't, or maybe there's somewhere in between? Yeah.
Yeah, that we have some in between answers here as well. Some firm yeses, some firm nos, some perhaps, some semi-mandatory. Yes, perhaps. So a very wide variety of views on this. Great, thank you, everyone. Well, could I hand back to you, Bruce, to give your views on this, just to start with?
Okay. So yeah, so great. So I think it depends. I think it depends. I said I'm a lawyer. I have a law license. And I think having a law license is an honor. And with my law license, I'm allowed to do certain things with my law license. I can go into court and I can argue. I'm allowed to go into court with my law license. And if I didn't have that license, even if I understood the law, I wouldn't be allowed to go into court and argue for somebody. So in my view, that license gives me a lot of power. I have a lot of power with that license. But with that power, we've heard many people talk about, and I have a wonderful mentor, Chow Hung in Singapore, talks about with the power, like Spider-Man said, comes a responsibility. And I think that, I should have to do some type of pro bono. There's a lot of different food on that buffet. It does not mean I have to represent clients, but I think I have an obligation, at least a moral obligation, to do this. And I think, to me, students should, as part of their education, I think students, especially law students, it should be a requirement in education for students to have to do this. So they learn that pro bono is not extra, but pro bono is what legal service providers do. So a lot of people may not always agree with me on this, but I believe that if you give enough food on the buffet and enough choices, you can make pro bono required, but you have to make it broad. That's my opinion. Back over to you, Gabby.
Thanks, Bruce. So it's interesting if we look around the world just to see how this question is answered. In South Africa, there are a few regional law societies that require a certain number of hours of pro bono legal work to be undertaken by lawyers practicing in that country. And of course, there's a mandatory minimum 50 hours of pro bono work that those who are applying to the New York bar must undertake. So there are definitely examples of this out there. Plus, of course, as has been discussed, there are a number of universities that are requiring their students to become involved. And I think there's certainly a lot of merit in considering, use of quotas, I think, just to ensure that exposure to pro bono legal services is there during those critical years as a university student, to understand how to become involved, which you can then carry forward into your career once you graduate. Marlon, can I turn to you to ask your views on this?
Thank you, Gabby. I have a layered answer to that question. I'll start by saying generally it should be voluntary. I think the main motivation for doing pro bono work should be somebody said, I think it was Professor Yasu, who said love. That should be a personal motivation to do service for the public good. That is the essence of doing pro bono work. So having said that, I would say, however, that there should, because of the very huge gap in terms of the demand, the need for legal services and the availability of legal services, then we should find a way for making sure that we address this huge gap, this huge justice gap. And we should find a mechanism where we combine both mandatory legal services and incentivized legal services, not necessarily mandatory, but you are providing incentives so that we take on this collective responsibility of addressing the huge justice gap. So that's a combination of different models, and again, depending on the country, depending on the policies, on legal practice, I would say we should try different things in order to help out in addressing that huge justice gap.
Thanks, Marlon. It certainly does depend on the country, doesn't it, as to, the level of government support that is there through the legal assistance sector for those in need, most certainly. Sam, could we bring you back in to answer this question?
Well, so yes, in Malaysia, lawyers, every year when you want to get renew your license, we pay 100 ringgit to the legal aid centers, which provide pro bono services free of charge to those who can't afford and they are not covered under the legal aid scheme. And also trainee lawyers have to undergo 14 days of mandatory legal aid, but this is actually pro bono services. They provide their services free in courts, in prisons, before they can be formally admitted to be a lawyer. So I see some answer that's a firm yes, no, and some maybe. So do you want to share your view as to why you think legal services providers should do pro bono services? Can I see some hand, please, if you would like to share your views? Just call names. I see Miss Chin Pasong from Laos. She say yes. Are you there?
Ah, อาจารย์ทิพย์ประสงค์จากประเทศลาวเนาะเห็นอาจารย์ยกมืออาจารย์ยังอยู่หันบ่อาจารย์
Or can we move to Abba? Miss Abba Roli? Are you there? As to why legal service providers should give pro bono services.
And also, Sam, I think we have a hand up.
Oh, okay, great.
Sudalon. I think somebody answered. Somebody, you want to share, you think it should be voluntary and compulsory? You've got your hand, you take both sides. You want to explain your position, somebody?
Okay, I think the pro bono work, is supposed to compulsory, because in case some people not really know what they should do, and if we try to impose, this idea and make them feel that okay, that should be the obligation, so that can be the start. After that, you can really feel that when you can spare some time, to help, as for the public good, so that can be the voluntary. So I think for in case of law, I think as the obligation for the state and down to the individuals, that's very important at the first start. That's my opinion. Thank you.
I might just reference another question in the chat, which came from Quentin Wong from DLA Piper. Quentin notes he would love to hear the panel's thoughts on aspirational targets for lawyers. Are they more helpful or hurtful? Perhaps I could have a crack at that one, given that in Australia we run the centre that I work for, runs the National Pro Bono Target, which is a purely voluntary aspirational target, which encourages signatories to do a minimum of 35 hours of pro bono work per lawyer per year, so roughly a week's worth of work. I would say in the experience we've had in Australia, it's been certainly very helpful, not hurtful. What the target has done is actually to create a real culture for pro bono participation. And we found that once a few key law firms jumped in back in 2007 and agreed to be foundation signatories, and really, I suppose, demonstrating and accepting that responsibility that we have as lawyers to be involved in pro bono work, then we saw that there were many more who followed suit afterwards. And we've seen a steady rise in hours year on year. The Centre's actually just about to release a report on the last financial year's results next week. And I can't divulge the specifics, but I will say that numbers are up even more than they were last year. And we saw an enormous growth through the pandemic over the last 2 years. So it's been interesting with that target, and the same applies to the UK collaborative plan as well, that and also of course targets in the US that where they've been set, even if they are purely aspirational, totally voluntary and totally unenforceable, the mere fact of the existence of them, which provides a certain amount or a number to aspire to, and sees signatories part of a community of others doing pro bono work, has really driven growth in pro bono. Of course, there are plenty of arguments against targets too. We don't want to change the motivation for doing pro bono work, which really should be based on the fact that it is simply the right thing to do. But they do help to create a culture of pro bono participation, no doubt.
And maybe, Gabby, I can add into that, which is slightly, and Quentin, thanks for the question, and this actually goes a little bit more to the reporting of pro bono. And we're going to have a session on that on Sunday in the afternoon. But, similar to targets, a number of jurisdictions require people to report on pro bono. And you don't actually have to do pro bono hours, but you have to report. So you could put 0. And you're welcome to do that. But in doing that, all of a sudden you have to put, I've done 0. And I'm licensed in the US, in Florida, and I have to report on my pro bono. And I don't really want to have to put a 0. I never would, but I don't, and I think that, requiring at least that for people to have to report kind of helps people set some sort of target that at least they don't want it to be 0. And I think it's a great motivator. And I think there's a number of jurisdictions that now require some type of pro bono reporting, even if they don't require specific hours or cases. So, and I think that that's great because people really don't want to put 0.
Just one more comment on that as well, that even if pro bono is not made in any way mandatory, I think it's certainly incumbent on regulatory bodies across the world to ensure that the appropriate conditions are set for pro bono involvement. So ensuring that lawyers have the right practicing certificates, for example, to be involved, and that there is insurance, professional indemnity insurance in particular, available. So there is certainly other steps that can be taken just to create a culture and to break down barriers to entry for pro bono participation as well.
Great. So I think, this is an ongoing question. I think it also depends, as we see, as I said before, I think for students, I think it should be part of an education. And I think if it's part of the education for students, you instill that value. And when they graduate, they're going to want to do it. If you don't make it part of the education, many students may not, when they get out, they may not understand why they want to do it. They may not understand the food on the buffet. So make it part of the education. So many schools do this as far as clinical legal education and others around the world. We've seen this growth of clinical legal education around the world equal the growth of pro bono around the world, because students are starting it at school. And I think the Philippines, we have a session on justice education tomorrow, and it will talk how the Philippines now have made it mandatory that every university, every law faculty in the Philippines has a clinic program. And I think that takes it a long way to you may not have to make it mandatory for lawyers, but when you put it into the schools, maybe that's an answer why you don't have to make it mandatory, because people are going to want to do it more voluntary. So, and that's a beautiful way. And we go back to, being unsung heroes and models and everything else. Marlon, do you want to wrap this up before we get, I think, into the final session? Just you and then Sam kind of wrap this up, and maybe we can hear from others.
Yes, and I would like to go back to what you said about the students. Again, it goes into the motivation. When we talk about pro bono legal services, as much as possible, we want it to be driven, not so much by any law, any policy requiring it, but because you want to do it. Whether you're a lawyer, you're a law student, you're a paralegal, or you are any other legal service provider. You want to do it because you feel the need for it. You see the need for it. It's needed, and in the declaration that we have reviewed earlier, it's essential to achieve access to justice. So if that is the motivation, then even if it is not mandatory, even if you are not required to do it, then you take it on as your own personal motivation, as your responsibility, your duty to contribute to the public good, and that is really the essence of pro bono. Sam?
So we discussed what is pro bono. So there's the elements of public goods in the free legal services or will be provided, emphasis on public goods. So we discussed the concept of pro bono and legal aid, how they overlap each other and how they can complementary and support each other. We talk about examples of types of pro bono services and who can actually provide pro bono services. It's not just lawyers, it can be students, law professor, paralegal, and civil society organizations. So how we can do it? So it's a buffet. It's a buffet. Whether you're a vegetarian, you just love meat, there's always a choice for you if you want to provide pro bono services. And why do we do pro bono services? I think each of us here have very different reason why we want to do it. And there's always a reason to do it. And as, whether it's charity, whether it's professionalism, whether it is a contribution to the society. So I think this can drive us further to do what we do pro bono. And for me personally, when Bruce came to UC Malaya, it was kind of shocking for me that, lawyers, we can actually do this, we can help people while also maintaining, our own financial income. And that's one of the reasons I'm still doing pro bono services. And thank you, Bruce and Wendy. So, and in terms of, we also emphasize on the Asian Pro Bono Conference declarations, how it is in a wider scope that, not just lawyers, but judicials, officers, paralegals, CSO can do it as well. And the last, but not least, we discussed whether pro bono services providers should do pro bono service mandatory, or is it yes or no? So we hear a different answer. And personally, I think I totally agree with the panelists and some of the participants that we should start young. When students are exposed to pro bono culture, it kind of imprint on them and carry on in the future. So that will wrap up the session today, and we will discuss further in tomorrow's plenary sessions. And as we can also exchange knowledge and experience in the informal sessions. Thank you, everyone.
So everybody, great. And if people have questions, now's the time. If you have some questions or you want to share, we're open to that now. We have a bit of time. And I'd actually like, can you all hear me? I don't know if my internet's real great.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, yeah. I actually see, Preeta, can you hear me? Preeta, can you hear me? Preeta, can you hear me? Ah, he's got background.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was actually going to ask, Preeta if I can, because Preeta is actually like my law firm partner in Chiang Mai, Thailand. He's the founder of the law firm. He's also, like Sam, a former student of mine, and I'm really proud to be a law firm partner with him. But Preeta, just if you wouldn't mind, just for couple of minutes just sharing, why do you do pro bono? Because again, I think this is important for people to see models. Why do you and why does our firm do it?
Yeah, I think for my opinions, when I study in the university and I see many problems with the local people or the society in Thailand, many things they have like unfair from the police or unfair from the government's officer, treat them in like the criminal cases pushing on them. And after that, I thinking from myself, why is the governments or the policemen do something like that? And we study law and we will be the lawyer or law students. How can we help the society with public society, something like that? And after that, I concluded, I get the lawyer license and I have many cases and I have income, so lost income. And after that, I give some time, my time to working on help the people like who get the unfairness from the legal cases. And after that, we proud on happy from our heart. It's not only the money. It's like we call in Thai we tidy. We help people and we like full in your heart, something like that. And I think lawyer is not only to get the benefit from the crimes. Lawyer should be get the benefit from your heart also. I believe that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'm really proud of the work that the firm does. And we have a lot of students that intern with us from university, and then young lawyers. And I think we have really great models. And again, as we continue to grow. So, would anyone else have a question or would like to share with us at this point? I think, Vish, you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks very much. I think Gabby, Marlon, and everybody kind of touched it, as did Samantha and you, Bruce. But I would like to hear, so to say, from the horse's mouth, to really ask you from your own personal experiences, what is it that really works in encouraging people to deliver pro bono? Is it the goodness of the heart, or is it, as a word we kept hearing, love? Is it something more? Is it making it mandatory, or is it something else? So I'd just like to hear your views on what you think works in encouraging people to do pro bono.
I can start, and in my experience in the Philippine context, and this is my personal experience. It was my opportunity. It was an opportunity that was given to me when I was a student to be part of a program engaging with the community. Not so much providing legal services, but being part of a program that opens your eyes and your mind to justice issues, to problems of communities, while you are training to be a legal service provider, while you are training to be a lawyer. And to see the need for that, I think that is a good entry point to motivate future lawyers, future legal service providers, to see that there is a real problem of justice, of injustice happening, and that you, undergoing training to become a lawyer someday, could do something about that. I think that's a good motivation. And to see that as an opportunity for you, to see that as a potential direction for you, whether you devote part-time of your professional life or full-time of your professional life to addressing that injustice. I think that's the best motivation that we can give to an aspiring lawyer or future legal service provider.
They can make a difference, as well as young lawyers. For example, in death in custody matter, when arrestees, they don't get lawyers. Often they are very vulnerable for police brutality. And one of the cases we observe, the person died because there are no access to lawyers, and they try to change the service to provide free legal services for to attend to those arrested in the police station. So these students and young lawyers, they open up their eyes. They know there's injustice, and we show them you can actually make a difference by being just there. Because we see when human rights violations happen, when that all the light is being turned off. So when you are there, although at least the client know you are there, the police know you are there, there's more transparency, accountabilities. And just give you an example, a very simple example, when students are required to go through 14 days of mandatory legal services, they put in courts, and they were, they see how some magistrate disallow bail, although bail should be granted. And these students are trained, so they prepare right up, and the lawyers follow up with the case. And these people, some are like senior citizens, they can be released from prison. And we show them that you can see injustice, and there's something you can do about it. It doesn't take much of your time, maybe just a few hours, and you can make a difference. So we have observed that students from that program has developed into, when they are lawyers, they continue to pick up, cases, even 1 or 2 cases. That's fine, because to that accused person, it means the whole world for them. And I think that's one of the biggest inspirations why, we lawyers and law students do pro bono. Thank you.
And I'll just chip in. Sorry, hope everyone can hear me okay. I'll just chip in and answer this, I think, from 2 perspectives. Firstly, from the perspective of the individual lawyer, I think there's been, certainly lawyers have felt a professional obligation to do pro bono work for many years. But I think with what we've all been through as a global community over the last couple of years in particular, through the pandemic, now dealing with a range of natural disasters around the world, we are in extraordinary times that require an extraordinary response. And I think many lawyers many individuals, in fact, want to do what they can to help. There's a greater sense, I think, of responsibility that we all have as individual citizens than we had previously. And as lawyers, as individual lawyers, we are in a unique position to use our skills and our talents for the greater good. And I think many of us feel that, and it's certainly been strengthened over the last few years. But also, I think looking at the opportunities for lawyers in skill development. Sam spoke too about the experience of lawyers with opening their eyes to what's going on and how they can assist. Certainly, the skill development is a huge opportunity for lawyers through pro bono work. And I think if you're trying to sell pro bono legal involvement to organizations, such as big firms and in-house teams, etc., then that's a really good way to think focus on as well. That it's, of course, the primary motivation is that it's the right thing to do for our fellow human beings, but also that there is that byproduct of skill development, and providing these opportunities does have an impact on retaining staff and recruiting good staff who want to be involved in pro bono legal work.
Great. I think we had a couple of hands up. We had Michael and Kampoy. So Michael, thank you, and really great. Michael, did you have a question or you wanted to make a comment? And I think we have Kampoy up with a hand up.
Bruce, I want to make a comment, as long as the feedback in the room's not bad. Why is always a great question. And I think the answers are as many as there are people. And it's not always an answer for a particular time. Sometimes the inspiration occurs at university, other times it doesn't occur until much later. But in the teaching that I do in pro bono, I think one great reminder that our profession needs is this. Law exists for a particular purpose in society, and society, through its governance, has given great privilege, as you said earlier today, to those of us entrusted with the obligation to assist all people to have access to justice. Laws that license lawyers exclusively are not created by society to enrich. We aren't given the right to practice to make lots and lots of money. We are given that right and that obligation to ensure that in a fair and balanced way, everybody who exists in our society and every other society gets access to justice and has their rights respected. And I think in my years in practice, we've lost sight of that a bit in the private sector because so much focus has been on the financial bottom line. It's been financial competitiveness. And of course, what that has overlooked in a terrible way is the enormous benefit that flows to one through simply responding to the calling of the law, to understand what it really means to develop relationships with needy people and to help them with what their needs are. This business that I subscribe to, i.e. that it's of the heart, it's commitment, it's culture, it's really understanding what it means to be a lawyer. You don't find it on the balance sheet of big firms or anywhere else for that matter. But you talk to anyone who's walked the journey of pro bono with needy people, and they will tell you where the real reward is. That's really all I wanted to say.
Beautiful, Michael. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. And wonderful. And Kampoy, I think Kampoy has a hand up from Lao. Yep. Can you tell us?
Kampoy. Chào. Chào. ว่าภาษาลาวจ้ะขอบใจที่ให้โอกาสเนาะประกอบความเห็นขอบใจบุสกี้แล้วก็ทีมงานของบัพชิโกประจำสปป.ลาวเนาะที่ได้ให้โอกาสที่พวกเขาได้เปิดโตทนายหรือว่าหน่วยงานช่วยให้คำช่วยเหลือทางด้านกฎหมายของสปป.ลาวเนาะขอบใจบุสกี้มื้อนี้เป็นมื้อที่สำคัญที่สุดคือทั้งภาษาลาวจะเรียกจะเอิ้นว่าอภิมหาโพโวโนเนาะหรือว่าอภิมหาจิตอาสาทั่วโลกที่มีหลายประเทศที่เข้าร่วมประชุมมื้อนี้เนาะสำหรับสปป.ลาวเฮานับตั้งแต่มีกฎระเบียบของทนายความคือสร้างตั้งทนายความขึ้นมาได้30กว่าปีนี้เนาะทางสภาทนายของพวกเราได้มีกฎระเบียบว่าทนายทุกคนต้องมีจิตอาสาช่วยเหลือประชาชนเนาะอย่างน้อยผู้หนึ่งหั่น1เรื่องต่อปีต่อคนเนาะฉะนั้นนับตั้งแต่ปี2006 2005 2006มาแล้วพวกเราทางสภาทนายพวกเรามีนโยบายให้ทนายแต่ละหน่วยหั่นลงโฆษณากฎหมายให้แก่ประชาชนตามกลุ่มเป้าหมายแต่ละบ้านนั้นเนาะเฉพาะเมืองสายเส้นทางของพวกเราได้ลงอยู่เมืองอาจจะเป็นเมืองปักกึมเมืองสายเส้นทางอ้อมแถวนอกเนาะแถวนอกชานเมืองนั้นเนาะแต่ในนี้แต่ละปีนั้นทนายของพวกเราได้มีจิตอาสาช่วยผู้ถูกหาที่ขึ้นศาลนั้นเนาะอย่างน้อยนี่ผู้หนึ่งเนาะ2เรื่องเนาะอันนี้นี่ของเฉพาะอยู่ในสภาของนครหลวงของพวกเขา ในปีนี้ในปี2022นี่คือตัวข้าพเจ้าเองก็คือได้ขึ้นศาลเพื่อปกป้องผู้ถืออยู่สองเรื่องเป็นคดีที่ว่าทางกฎหมายได้กำหนดให้มีทนายปกป้องผู้ถือหาเนาะแต่จุดประสงค์ที่ข้าพเจ้าจะประกอบความเห็นนี้นะอยากขอแลกเปลี่ยนกับบรรดาประเทศที่เพิ่นมีทนายมาก่อนมีสภาทนายความมาก่อนนั้นเนาะว่าเพิ่นมีวิธีใดที่ว่าจะให้การช่วยเหลือหรือว่าโปรโบโนนี่เนาะว่ามันเป็นจะให้ทั่วถึงกันนะว่าแล้วก็สิมีกำหนดจังไดเนาะว่าต้องได้ช่วยเหลือแบบโปรโบโนช่วยเหลือแบบลีกูเอดแบบว่าช่วยเหลือแบบบ่หวังผลประโยชน์อันใดอีกเนาะอันนี้นี่ที่เป็นคำถามท่านบุสกี้กับทีมงานของโปรโบโนนี่เนาะที่ได้เข้าร่วมเขามีคำถามตอนนั้นเนาะ
I think really great. I think you really raised some you've raised some great questions, and I think so much of this will be answered, you know, in the sessions over the next now 2.5 days. There's going to be a lot of examples of different ways that pro bono is done and how and who, and you know, having worked in Laos now for almost 20 years. You know, I'm really impressed with the work that legal service providers do in Laos, not just lawyers, but including lawyers. I think they're great models. And I think people over the next couple of days will be learning. There's a number of sessions about pro bono in Laos that I think are going to focus on this. And then there's going to be a lot of other sessions that will focus on the way pro bono is done, inclusiveness, you know, different types of persons from many other countries. So what I would say for this today is absolutely go through the agenda. Many of the sessions will be translated into Lao language, which is wonderful. So we're really grateful to have our wonderful interpreters. And I think, you know, and we really encourage you to, you know, attend, share, and share what you know, and then learn from others. And I think that's how we're going to continue to grow this together. But again, I really want to say this, you know, this first conference was held in Laos in 2012, and we're really thankful for Laos for holding the conference in 2012 and all that has grown since that time in growing this. So, but thanks for those questions. Do we have any additional questions before we wrap this up for the day? Or any additional comments? Vish, oh, yes, from you.
Yes, thanks very much. I think, Bruce, the example that you gave where, you know, your relatives might ask you for legal advice and you're doing it for free, and you're also doing it from the goodness of your heart and possibly also for love, but that's still not being considered pro bono. I think you're onto something there, and there need to be deeper contours, which sorry, I've already seen 1 or 2 sessions are exploring. So yeah, really looking forward to that and to understand what pro bono truly means to different people and also different cultures. So looking forward.
Yeah. And Vish, coming from India, we have a wonderful South Asia, not just India, but South Asia perspective, you know, and it's really great to see. But one thing I would say I leave with this is that pro bono is not linked to one country or one culture. If we look at religions around the world, if you're Buddhist or you're Muslim or you're Christian or Hindu or you're Jewish or religions around the world teach this. This is what we do. And I think Michael, what Michael was saying before is, if you're not sure, just walk along somebody who's doing with it. You know, if you've never done pro bono, it's okay. Walk with somebody who's doing it and walk over to that buffet, and they will show you some amazing, delicious foods to have. So with that, I think we're going to close this session. I'm really grateful for everyone. Everybody thumbs up. Good. Can we do a big thank you to all our presenters. We have our next session, which I think starts at 1:30 ICT time. But the next sessions will be breakout sessions. There will be breakout sessions. I think there's up to, there'll be 6 sessions at a time. Some will have Lao and Myanmar translation, some will not. You need to look on the schedule, on the agenda. If it has a Myanmar or Lao flag, it means it has interpretation. And if it doesn't, it won't. So we'll have that. And then at the end of today, we're going to have a wonderful high-level session that will have ambassadors and high-level persons focusing on justice and collaboration, and how we should be collaborating together. That will be the closing plenary at the end of today. But before that, we're going to go have, many of us are going to go have lunch because I'm hungry, Hugh Hao, as we say in Lao and Thai. And I look forward to seeing everybody back on at, I think it's 1:30 our time. Want to look on the schedule. Don't listen to me. Look on the agenda because I probably get it wrong. Okay. So with that, everybody, thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing everybody. Yep. And then there's a magic word. The magic word here is standardized. For those that are getting certificates, that's the magic word. And you need this magic word if you want a certificate, because they're going to ask you which sessions you attend. You have to put the magic word.
I stopped this year too. My first year, I didn't renew my